Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving into something really cool, a totally unexpected link between the tiny world of microbiology and the massive challenge of building our future power grid. It's pretty amazing stuff.
So let's just jump right in with the big question, what on earth can a single bacterium teach us about powering an entire city? I know, it sounds a little bit like science fiction, but the answer could seriously hold the key to a cleaner, more stable energy future. Let's break it down.
Okay, so first things first, we need to understand the big problem we're up against as we switch over to green energy.
Look, we all know that renewables like solar and wind are absolutely essential for the planet. But there's a catch. Their very nature creates this massive engineering challenge. You see, the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow, they're intermittent. So they don't produce a nice, smooth, constant flow of power. This fluctuation introduces a kind of electrical noise onto the grid, and the technical term for that problem is harmonic distortion.
And here's what that looks like. On the left, you've got the ideal, a perfect, clean, smooth wave of electricity. It's exactly what all of our electronics and infrastructure are designed to handle. But on the right, that's what can happen with all that noise. It becomes a distorted, messy wave that's super inefficient and can actually damage our equipment.
So, how do we clean up that messy power before it ever hits the grid? Well, for that, we've got to look at a really critical piece of hardware in all of our renewable energy systems.
Meet the power inverter. The best way to think of it is as a gatekeeper, or maybe a translator. Its job is to take that choppy, variable power coming from a solar panel or a wind turbine and convert it into the clean, stable, and perfectly synchronized electricity that the grid demands. It's an absolutely crucial job.
Now, the brain inside that inverter is a set of special circuits called PI controllers. You can basically think of them as a set of incredibly sensitive dials. They are constantly adjusting the flow of power, filtering out all that noise we talked about. But here's the thing. For them to work right, they have to be tuned with absolute precision. If you get it even a little bit wrong, that noisy, distorted power gets right through.
So you'd think we'd have a super advanced way to tune these critical little dials, right? Well, for years, the method we've used has been, let's just say, less than scientific.
The traditional method is literally called trial and error, and as the researchers behind this study put it, it's a tedious and monotonous process. The key thing here is that it's not designed to find the best possible setting, just a setting that kind of works. And in a system as complex and important as our power grid, just good enough really isn't good enough anymore.
So, to find a better way to tune these controllers, researchers looked somewhere completely unexpected. Not to bigger computers or more complex engineering, but to one of the smallest organisms on Earth, the E. coli bacterium. And this, my friends, is where things get really, really interesting.
They focused on something called the Bacterial Foraging Optimization Algorithm, or BFO. Basically, what it is a computer model that perfectly mimics the simple yet incredibly effective strategy that a colony of bacteria uses to find food. The big idea is to harness that natural, collective intelligence to solve our very human engineering problem.
So how does it actually work? Well, it's this beautiful four-step dance. First, a single bacterium kind of tumbles and swims around, instinctively moving toward a higher concentration of food. That's called chemotaxis. Then, once they find something good, they actually send out signals to each other, calling their friends to swarm the best spots. Step 3, the most successful bacteria, the ones who found the most food, they get to reproduce and split in two. The least successful? They die off. And finally, some of the bacteria are just randomly scattered to completely new locations to search for totally undiscovered food sources. It's this relentless, self-improving process of searching, sharing, and optimizing.
So, here's the big what if. What if the food the bacteria are searching for isn't nutrients, but the absolute perfect setting for those PI controllers on the power inverter? What if we could unleash a swarm of these virtual bacteria to hunt for the one perfect tuning that gets that harmonic distortion as low as it can possibly go? And that is exactly what the researchers did. They built a simulation to put the old, manual way of doing things head-to-head against nature's incredibly smart algorithm. It's the old way versus the new way. So, in one corner, you've got the traditional trial and error method. And in the other corner, you have the bio-inspired bacterial foraging optimization. The goal was simple. Which method could produce the cleanest, most stable power output? The results were, frankly, remarkable. The BFO algorithm, the one inspired by bacteria, consistently produced significantly lower total harmonic distortion. And remember, that's a direct measurement of that electrical noise we were talking about.
The bacteria-inspired method just delivered cleaner, higher quality, more stable power. End of story.
Now, why does this matter so much? Because the industry has very strict standards for power quality. This 5% number right here, that's the absolute maximum level of distortion allowed to keep the grid stable and safe. If you go over that limit, it's not just inefficient, you can damage equipment, cause system failures, and even trigger blackouts. So the BFO method doesn't just do a better job, it helps make sure we stay well within these critical safety limits.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second, away from the specific experiment, and just look at the bigger picture here.
The big takeaway isn't just about this one algorithm. This is proof that we can find incredibly elegant solutions to our most complex, modern problems by looking at the natural world. This method gives us a more stable grid, and a more stable grid means we can more reliably integrate more and more renewable energy. When you think about it, it makes perfect sense. Nature has been running optimization tests for literally billions of years. We're just now finally learning how to listen.
And that really leaves us with this final, fascinating question. If a simple bacterium can help us build a better power grid, what other secrets are just waiting for us out there? What can we learn from the flight of a bird, or the structure of a leaf, or the incredible collective intelligence of an ant colony? The answers, it seems, are all around us. Thanks for joining me on this one.